The tag on the key. Book 1, The Plan. Chapter 17, Prosperity. Business was doing well, and prosperity was smiling on my family. All this despite the personal setbacks that I had suffered. Interest rates were low. My parents had saved some money from the business and investments and decided to build a house. It really was a nice house. Modern, spacious, front and backyards with tall, majestic trees. Not at all ostentatious, but rather it was understated, as if it was trying to be invisible. It was big, but well proportioned. Above all, as my mother would often point out, it was functional. Years later, my wife and I went to console mourners at the house of a local Rebbe. The deceased was an important rabbi who was the leader of a group of Hasidim. The Rebbe's family told my wife about what it was like to grow up in the house of the Rebbe. The house had 4 doors, so that visitors and guests could enter from every direction. This was in order to emulate Abraham, our forefather. The patriarch's tents opened in all 4 directions, enabling him to extend hospitality to every possible wayfarer. I thought about this, and then realized that the house that I grew up in actually had 5 doors. People would be coming in and out all day and night. My mother was always cooking and feeding, entertaining, and giving advice. It also had a beautiful view from the master bedroom, as it was built on top of the tallest elevation in the area. When we moved into that house, I had to switch schools. The school in the new district was not as good of a school as the previous one that I attended. In addition to that, I had to ride the school bus each morning and afternoon, and I did not know anybody there. When I was about 8 years old, my friends and I were playing in the backyard of our house. There was a swing set there with steel seats. One of the seats hit me in the mouth and broke many of my front teeth. The broken teeth were permanent teeth, and so the dentist decided that there was nothing to do about it at the time. The prognosis was to wait until I was 16. By that time, the teeth would reach full size, and then they could be capped properly. So I waited for 8 years to get my teeth fixed. In the meantime, I walked around with a mouth that looked like a picket fence. Every morning, as I got off the school bus, there was a kid that used to sit on the steps at the entrance to the school. He would always ask me, what happened to my teeth? Not too pleasant an experience. I just had to swallow it and keep it inside. I must say that there were a few good teachers there that year, and I still remember things that I learned from them in science, history, and English. The gym teacher, however, was an ex-Marine, a real disciplinarian, and I was very low on his list. I was not in good physical condition, fairly uncoordinated, and of course, my visual impairment was not a great asset to me in any type of competitive sports. I absolutely dreaded the gym class. My heart would pound as the minutes ticked by till the bell would ring for gym period. I could not wait for school to be finished each day, but then I would have to go to the temple to practice for my bar mitzvah. I was coming up to 13 years of age. In the Jewish religion, that is the age of bar mitzvah. which is a major life event for a Jewish young man, there was intense pressure upon me to do a good job. People were going to come and see how I was able to lead the prayers and read the Torah with the traditional chant. If I did well, it was a good reflection on my parents. It showed that they had done a good job of raising me to be a good Jewish boy. From this one can understand what failure to succeed would mean for me. I had to work closely with the rabbi, for whom the passage of time had further eroded my respect. The bar mitzvah did come and go, but at a price. Due to all the pressure I was under to perform well at my bar mitzvah, I was pulling my hair out. Seriously, I would hold onto my hair and pull it out of the scalp because I was so nervous. As a result of this, I had a sizable bald spot on the back of my head. My parents noticed it and asked me how I came to have a bald spot on my head. So I told them that there was a kid in school that pulled my hair out. Not a total lie. They naturally wanted to know who did it. I didn't want to admit that I was the one who pulled my own hair out because of the pressure that I was under. I really wanted to please them. My mother's brother died in her arms in the cattle car on the way to Majdanek, as my mother testified on video, that he was not even bar mitzvah. She would often tell me about how wonderful my bar mitzvah was going to be, and that she knew that I was going to make her and my father very proud. How could I possibly let them down? According to what they said about me after the bar mitzvah, the whole affair was an absolute success. From my point of view, it was a success because they were very happy with my performance and the way everything worked out. But they always wanted to know why I wouldn't tell them who pulled my hair out. Needless to say, I was not the biggest fan of the religion, although I was still, as always, fiercely proud to be Jewish. To this day, I have a difficult time with bar mitzvahs. I admit that this is not right, that I should get over it and grow up already. Think about my grandchildren. It should be a happy time for them on their big day, and I should be happy for them. Still, it poses a difficulty whenever it comes up. At least I am aware of it. And through that awareness, I've made efforts to come to terms with the whole idea. So the year came and went, and my parents decided that they would send me to a private school. That was another terrible idea. It seems to me that the reason they wanted to send me to a private school was to get me away from those kids that were pulling my hair out. Another reason given to me was because students who went to private schools generally got into better colleges. I did become friendly with some kids in that school. It turns out that the kids that I became friendly with there were also new in the school. One of the kids that I was friendly with was Italian. He spoke with a heavy Italian accent. His family had just immigrated to America a few years before. Just as the friendship was beginning to develop, I got switched to another school. Start all over again. Chapter 18, Private School. Well, this private school did have some very good teachers. In particular, the English department was very good. One of the teachers really encouraged me to be creative in my compositions, and when I did, he celebrated it. Another teacher was from Scotland, and he used to make vocabulary come alive. He spoke in a kind of a sing-song fashion and always had a smile on his face. The French teacher was really something special. He had been a soldier for La France in North Africa, and he had a lot of life experience. He loved America and had no time for the demonstrations that were going on at the time against the war in Vietnam, nor did he have any respect for the demonstrators either. Besides teaching us the French language, he taught us about vectors and chemical reactions. He taught us how to put out burning cigarettes in aviation fuel. Note: don't try this on your own. He had a current model Mustang convertible. Team sports were a requirement at this school. I was naturally quite terrible at them. The school days were long, made even longer by the long commute to get there and back. From my point of view, not worth it. Chapter 19, Heart Attack. During that year, my father, my precious father, my hero, got a heart attack. I was just 14 years old, and my mother, pretty high strung under normal circumstances, was totally out of sorts. While my father was in the hospital, I was like the man of the house anytime my mother went out. 2 weeks or so after my father was admitted to the hospital and lying in intensive care, my mother and I visited him. Suddenly he gave out a groan and collapsed on the bed. My mother screamed for medical staff, and doctors and nurses crowded the intensive care room. My mother and I were asked to leave the room as the medical staff attended to my father. My mother, who had her own health issues, was ready to pass out. I had never seen her so consumed with fear. I knew that I had to try to calm her down, but couldn't find the words, so I just held her hand. The doctor came over and told us that my father had just suffered a major heart attack and that they were not worried. They were actually waiting for this all along, so the doctor claimed. I didn't buy it, but it seemed better to me that my mother would believe what the doctor said. Better for her and also better for me. I could only hope they knew what the hell they were talking about. I didn't want anything to happen to my father. Again, I don't know if the doctors were lying or telling the truth, but I do know that my father made a slow but steady recovery to health and eventually went back to work in the bakery.